Have you ever stopped to think about what happens when your children no longer have the time, energy, or willingness to care for you as you age? Or have you ever wondered if living with your children or in-laws might turn out to be more challenging than you anticipated? In this video, we're going to dive into the harsh realities many older adults face when they decide to live with family, and why sometimes the best choice for your happiness, peace of mind, and overall well-being is to choose independence over living with loved ones. As you watch, you'll learn about the emotional and physical toll that relying on your children or in-laws for care can take, especially when misunderstandings, neglect, or a lack of respect begin to creep into the relationship. We'll also discuss the crucial steps you can take to protect your sense of dignity and inner peace as you grow older. Though living with family might initially seem like the easier or more supportive option, maintaining your independence, no matter how tempting family may seem, is often the wisest and healthiest decision. Throughout this video, you'll hear real-life stories, along with expert insights, on how to navigate the complexities of aging, the dynamics that come with family relationships, and why setting healthy boundaries is so important. As we explore these sensitive topics, you'll find advice on how to preserve your happiness and maintain healthy, respectful relationships with your family members while ensuring your later years are filled with peace, dignity, and contentment. By the end of this video, you'll have a clearer understanding of how to navigate these often difficult situations, safeguard your emotional well-being, and make informed decisions that will help ensure that your golden years are filled with respect, peace, and joy. Stick with us as we explore the valuable life lessons that will help empower you to live life on your terms, no matter what stage of life you're in. If you enjoy the content, I encourage you to subscribe to my channel and turn on the notification bell so you never miss out on future videos. Your support means the world to me. And if you found this video valuable, please consider liking and sharing it so that we can continue spreading these important lessons. Also, if this topic resonates with you, feel free to comment 1. If you don't agree or have suggestions on how I can improve, comment 0, so I can continue to enhance my content and bring you the best possible videos. Now, let's jump right in. Helen had always prided herself on her independence, but as she got older, she began to feel that living alone was no longer as practical or safe as it used to be. The fear that if she were to fall ill or have an accident, her children, who lived far away, might not be able to come to her aid quickly enough, started to weigh heavily on her mind. After some thought, she started considering the idea of living with one of them. She decided it was time to discuss her future living arrangements, so she called her 2 children, Mark and Emily, together for a serious conversation. Mark, her son, suggested something that Helen hadn't expected. He proposed that she move into a nearby nursing home, where there would be other residents her age to connect with, and where she would have constant care. The facility would take care of all her needs, everything from meals to daily activities. Moreover, the nurses and doctors were always on hand to help her if she felt unwell. The environment was comfortable and well-suited for her age. But Emily, her daughter, immediately disagreed. "No, Mom, I don't want you in a nursing home," Emily said firmly. "It's just not right. People will talk, and they'll say we, your children, sent you to a nursing home. That's just not how it's supposed to be." Emily suggested a different plan. She proposed that they hire a maid to take care of Helen at home, arguing that it would be more convenient. She said that Helen could have anything she wanted cooked without restrictions, and they could visit her easily. But Helen wasn't convinced. While she understood Emily's suggestion, the idea of hiring a maid to live in her house made her feel uneasy. She didn't want to be burdened with a stranger in her home, and she feared that if she fell ill, the maid might not treat her as she deserved. She had read too many disturbing stories online about elderly people being mistreated by caregivers, and those stories haunted her thoughts. Finally, Emily came up with a compromise. "Let's do this. Mark and I will take turns taking care of you. You can stay with each of us for 1 year at a time," she suggested. Helen thought this was a fair solution, one that would allow her to spend time with her grandchildren and enjoy family life. She agreed, but with one condition. She said to her children, "I won't be a burden. I'll give you my pension of $400 a month to help with any expenses. I've thought it through, and I don't need to keep it. I want to give it to you both so that you can have it." Mark, who had always been somewhat intimidated by his wife, felt a little uncomfortable with the arrangement. He called his wife, Sarah, to ask for her opinion. To his surprise, Sarah agreed without hesitation, saying nothing more about it. Helen was taken aback by her sudden, seemingly unbothered acceptance. She wondered to herself, why is Sarah being so accommodating? Could it be because she's after my pension? Despite her doubts, Helen decided to move into Mark and Sarah's house. She thought, I'm giving them all my pension, my living expenses are minimal, and the rest belongs to them. Surely, they won't make things difficult for me. However, it didn't take long before Helen began to regret her decision. The reality of living with Mark and Sarah quickly became unbearable. She said it felt as though living at their house was like a never-ending cycle of discomfort and humiliation. The house had 3 bedrooms, 1 for Mark and Sarah, 2 for their children, and there was no space left for her. She had to sleep on the sofa in the living room, which was next to the hallway. She had to take her blankets outside during the day to dry them on the balcony, and at night, she had to wait for everyone to finish watching TV before she could finally make her bed. Helen's sleep was constantly disturbed. Every time Mark or his children walked down the hallway or into the bathroom, she could hear every movement. It felt like she had no privacy, and the constant noise made it hard to relax. Sarah, who had always been frugal, bought groceries sparingly. When she bought meat, it was only a small amount, and it was mostly reserved for the children, because they need the nutrition. As for Helen and Mark, they were expected to make do with vegetables. Even the fruit Sarah bought was kept in the bedroom, away from Helen, who had no access to it. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment 1 below to let me know that you are still here with me. Helen couldn't help but feel frustrated. I give them everything I have, my pension, my savings, and yet they don't even provide decent food, she thought. She was giving them her pension to help, but it didn't seem to be making a difference. Despite her discomfort, she didn't feel like she had the right to speak up. She didn't want to cause trouble or create conflict in their home. Then, one day, Helen overheard a conversation between Mark and Sarah that made her blood boil. She had been in the garden, looking for some peace when she returned and overheard her daughter-in-law speaking to Mark. "Mom eats so much," Sarah said. "We didn't used to spend much on bread or vegetables, but since she moved in, we have to buy so much more food. She eats as much as 2 people." Mark didn't say anything. He just stayed silent. Helen felt a wave of anger and humiliation. "I raised my son, and now he's treating me like this," she thought. That night, she couldn't sleep. The pain of betrayal weighed heavily on her heart, and she realized just how much she had underestimated the challenges of relying on her family for care. The next morning, she made a decision. She told Mark, "I've been staying here for 6 months, and I think I'll go stay with Emily for a while. It'll be more comfortable there." Helen packed her things and moved to Emily's house, hoping that things would be different. She arrived, and to her surprise, Emily was warm and welcoming, even buying her some delicious food, which made her feel a lot better. Emily's husband, David, was kind and treated her well. But once again, Helen overheard a conversation, this time between Emily and her granddaughter, Lily. "Why does Grandma live here?" Lily asked. "She already has a son. Shouldn't we be taking care of Grandpa instead?" Emily, clearly upset, scolded Lily and slapped her, which made the situation even more uncomfortable. Lily stormed off and didn't return to school for a few days. The entire family had to search for her, eventually finding her at a friend's house. Helen realized that even at Emily's house, she couldn't stay long. So, she returned to her own home, exhausted and disheartened by everything that had happened. "No matter where I go, my home is truly my home," she thought. My children's homes can never be my real home. As she reflected on her experience, Helen found herself questioning the role she had played in raising her children. Why did I raise them? She asked herself. Can I rely on them in my old age? Parents sacrifice so much for their children, but when parents need help, their children might not always step up. Helen's sleep was never truly peaceful. The sofa in the living room, which had become her makeshift bed, was placed right next to the hallway. Every time her son, Mark, or his children went to the bathroom, she could hear every movement they made. It felt like her privacy was constantly being invaded. The lack of space, the constant noise, and the discomfort of the living room made it impossible for her to relax. But what hurt the most was the way her daughter-in-law, Sarah, managed the household. Sarah was incredibly frugal, and it seemed to Helen that she was doing everything she could to stretch every dollar. Whenever Sarah bought groceries, she would only purchase a small amount of meat, maybe half a kilogram, and stretch it over several days. Sarah would cook for the children first, saying, "They need the protein. They're growing." As for the adults, Helen and Mark, they were only given vegetables to eat. Even the fruit Sarah bought was kept out of sight, taken into the bedroom and stored there, away from Helen's reach. Helen couldn't help but feel frustrated. I'm giving them everything I have, my pension, my savings, and yet they won't even buy decent food, she thought. I think they're saving all the money for themselves. Despite her discomfort and mounting resentment, Helen didn't dare speak up. She didn't want to cause tension or create conflict in the household. She kept her feelings to herself, trying to make the best of an increasingly painful situation. However, one day, as she wandered down to the community garden to pass some time and talk to the neighbors, she overheard a conversation that made her blood boil. She had been hoping to find a moment of peace, but when she returned to the house, she heard her son, Mark, and Sarah talking in the kitchen. "My mom eats so much," Sarah said, clearly annoyed. "We didn't used to spend much on bread or vegetables, but since she moved in, we're buying so much more food. It's like she eats as much as 2 people." Helen froze, listening in shock. Mark, always avoiding confrontation, didn't speak up. He just stayed silent. Helen's anger surged. How could they say such things about her? She had given them her pension and had tried to help in whatever way she could, and this was how she was treated. But she didn't say anything right then. She had to bite her tongue and hold back the tears. The humiliation cut deeper than she could express. That night, Helen couldn't sleep. The weight of the words she'd overheard haunted her. She lay awake, staring at the ceiling, feeling utterly humiliated. I raised them both with love and care, and this is how they repay me? I sacrificed everything for them, and now they've turned out to be so ungrateful, she thought bitterly. The next morning, she knew she couldn't stay another day in their house. She told Mark, "I've been here for 6 months now, and I think I'll go stay with Emily for a while. It'll be more comfortable there." With that, she packed her things, took her bank card, and made her way to her daughter Emily's house. As she left, she told herself, after all, a daughter is a daughter. Surely, Emily will treat me better than Mark has. When she arrived at Emily's home, she felt an immediate shift in the atmosphere. Emily didn't ask for her bank card or push her to give anything. Emily even bought her some of her favorite foods, which made Helen feel much more comfortable than she had in Mark's house. For the first time in months, Helen felt a sense of relief and kindness that she hadn't experienced in a long time. But, as fate would have it, the relief was short-lived. One morning, before Helen had even gotten up, she overheard a conversation between her daughter, Emily, and her granddaughter, Lily. As Helen walked out to the yard for some fresh air and a little exercise, she overheard Lily ask Emily, "Why does Grandma live here? She already has a son. Shouldn't we be taking care of Grandpa instead of Grandma?" Emily, hearing her daughter's question, grew angry and, in a rash moment, slapped Lily across the face. The young girl, shocked and upset, ran off, refusing to go to school for several days. The entire family had to search for Lily, eventually finding her at a friend's house. The tension in Emily's household grew unbearable. What was meant to be a peaceful refuge for Helen was quickly becoming another stressful environment. Helen realized that, once again, she couldn't stay long at her daughter's house. The situation was no better than before. It dawned on her that no matter where she went, it seemed like she would never find peace in anyone else's home. Maybe I should just go back to my own house, she thought. At least there, I can be in control of my own space, and no one will make me feel like a burden. After spending some time at Emily's house, Helen quickly realized that even there, she couldn't stay for long. The tension between family members had grown too much for her to handle. Feeling emotionally and physically drained, she finally decided it was time to return to her own home. She thought to herself, in the end, my home is still my home. No matter where I go, no one else's home can ever be the place where I truly feel at peace. My children's homes can never be my real home. As she settled back into the familiarity of her own space, she found herself in deep reflection. Why did I raise my children? She pondered. Did I do it all in vain? Can I depend on them now that I need them the most? She realized that, despite the sacrifices she had made for them throughout the years when the time came for her to face difficulties, her children had not always been ready to step in and offer the help she needed. She knew that most parents, out of love, dedicate their lives to their children, often sacrificing their well-being to ensure their children's happiness and success. Yet, when it came time for the parents to be supported in return, the response from their children might not be as forthcoming as expected. For Helen, this realization was a bitter pill to swallow, but it shaped her understanding of the realities of aging and the complexities of familial relationships. Dear viewers, if you ever find yourself in a situation where your daughter-in-law or son-in-law does not respect you, it's important not to react hastily or in a way that will cause even more tension. The relationship between parents and children is naturally strong, often because of the deep blood connection. Even when there are disagreements, there is usually a way to work things out and maintain family harmony. But the relationship with your daughter-in-law or son-in-law is different. When there are repeated conflicts with them, it can lead to serious estrangement, and it may even start to affect the stability of the marriage. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment 2 below to let me know that you are still here with me. Older individuals, especially those who fear the loneliness and challenges of aging, may feel compelled to please their son-in-law or daughter-in-law in an attempt to ease tensions and avoid conflicts. As the saying goes, a parent's heart is always pure. However, this doesn't mean that your daughter-in-law or son-in-law will appreciate your efforts. They might take advantage of your kindness and become even more demanding. On the other hand, some parents, feeling hurt and angry, may turn against their daughter-in-law or son-in-law in frustration, which only deepens the tension and worsens the relationship. It's important to think ahead and consider the long-term effects of your actions. Even if you're facing difficulties at any stage of life, it's critical not to act on impulse or extremes. If your daughter-in-law or son-in-law is being disrespectful, don't rush to retaliate or to try and please them. Instead, do these 4 things, and it will be enough to preserve your dignity and emotional peace. First, stop caring so much about them and treat them as outsiders. In the beginning, it's natural to treat your daughter-in-law or son-in-law like your own child, but if they're showing disrespect, it's time to stop considering them as a part of your inner family circle. Trying to please them when they treat you poorly will only cause more harm to you in the long run. When children divorce, the person who will truly care for them in their old age is still your children. Your daughter-in-law or son-in-law might fade from the picture entirely, and you may never hear from them again. After a divorce, it's very rare for a daughter-in-law or son-in-law to continue supporting their parents-in-law. So, it's often better not to rely on your son-in-law or daughter-in-law. They are, after all, outsiders in the larger scope of your life, so it's best to keep your relationship with them at that level. Don't get too emotionally invested in trying to win their approval or attention. Treat them like passers-by, who come and go, And remember that not every relationship needs to be deep or personal. When you stop caring about their approval, you free your mind from unnecessary stress. Keeping your distance allows you to protect yourself from unpleasant words or negative attitudes, which only serve to drain your energy. Secondly, don't argue. Stay silent. Those who do not show respect will often try to provoke arguments or make things difficult for you. And when grandparents help care for their grandchildren, it's hard to refuse or push back because of their deep love for them. But sometimes, this means having to endure uncomfortable or disrespectful words. There's an old saying, "Don't chase a dog after it bites you." Silence is golden. Speaking is silver. When you maintain silence in these situations, the other party will eventually stop their behavior. After all, no one can argue with a wall forever. Understand that right and wrong are not always clear at the moment, and time has a way of revealing the truth. Over time, the real nature of things will come to light. Arguing only worsens the relationship and creates more problems. It can lead to both sides saying or doing things they will regret later. And especially when an older person constantly argues with their son-in-law or daughter-in-law in front of the grandchildren, it can leave a bad impression on the children. This kind of behavior can affect their mental state and emotional well-being, which is something we should try to avoid. If you take a long-term view, you'll realize that, as time goes on, your daughter-in-law or son-in-law will mature. By the time they reach their 40s, their attitude toward you will likely become more balanced and harmonious. In the end, time has a way of healing wounds and shifting perspectives, and many issues can be resolved with patience. Thirdly, don't gossip. Keep family matters private. When elderly people feel disrespected by their daughter-in-law or son-in-law, they often seek an outlet to vent. They turn to friends, neighbors, or acquaintances, speaking critically about their in-laws. And while these listeners may sympathize and agree with their frustrations, the reality is that such complaints eventually become gossip. This gossip, once shared, can easily make its way back to the people being talked about, but by the time it reaches them, it will have been distorted and exaggerated. This only leads to further conflict and can cause irreparable damage to the family dynamic. When you share your grievances, remember that what you're sharing is just your perspective. It's not the complete truth. What you say is often shaped by your feelings and frustrations, and may not reflect the entire situation. In time, as you grow older, it's important to nurture kindness, to look at things with an open heart, and to let go of the need to be right. The essence of kindness is to approach everything with gentleness, patience, and peace of mind. Family matters should remain within the family, and once they're shared with others, they can never be fully repaired. Always remember that your friends and neighbors won't solve your family's issues. They will just see it as a story to gossip about. Understand that what you share is just your perspective, not the objective truth. There's an old saying, "The snake doesn't know its venom." Sometimes, people lack the courage or self-awareness to recognize their own mistakes. If you find yourself in a situation where you're frustrated or upset, take a moment to reflect. Did I make any mistakes? If so, it's important to correct them. But if the fault lies with the other person, learn to accept that as well. As you age, it becomes essential to nurture kindness, which means approaching everything with gentleness, an open heart, and a peaceful mind. Your family problems, after all, aren't something your friends or neighbors can fix. They'll only hear your side of the story, and over time, they'll turn it into a tale to gossip about. When you talk about your life, make it a habit to say, "Everything is fine. Everything is good." It doesn't mean you have to hide your true feelings, but it helps to avoid burdening others with your family issues. Keeping your concerns private will help maintain peace, not just for you, but also for the people around you. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment 3 below to let me know that you are still here with me. Fourth, don't rely on others. Take care of yourself as you age. When your daughter-in-law or son-in-law doesn't show respect, depending on your children to care for you in your later years becomes much more difficult. It's important to recognize that in many families, the words of a spouse have more impact than anything else. Children may want to help, but if their spouse disagrees or offers many reasons not to, your children will likely abandon their original intention. Everyone knows that you spend more time with your spouse than with your parents. In the end, children will prioritize their relationship with their spouse over their parents. Many children, even if they've had a close relationship with their parents, may gradually distance themselves as they grow older. So, prepare yourself emotionally for the possibility that you might not receive the kind of care or attention you hoped for from your children in your later years. Live frugally, and don't spend all your money. Start saving a little each month to build a retirement fund. Living independently in your senior years requires self-reliance. Exercise to stay healthy, take care of your meals, and manage your household chores. Don't depend on anyone for your care. If, at some point, you find that you can't take care of yourself anymore, rather than staying in your son's house, constantly facing your daughter-in-law's dissatisfaction, consider moving to a nursing home if your finances allow. Another option is to hire a caregiver. Having money and a home are vital for your well-being as you age. Financial security will provide you with the freedom to make decisions about your care without depending on others. It's far safer to have savings and a contingency plan than to rely on your children, as their situations may change over time. Ultimately, respect must flow in both directions. No one should be forced to bow down to anyone else, and no one has the right to criticize or control others. In your later years, if your daughter-in-law or son-in-law doesn't treat you well but their small family is happy, that's okay. Don't expect perfection. There's another old saying, a mother can give birth to 9 children, but none are the same. Parents and children often struggle to get along, so it's even harder when dealing with in-laws. Everyone has different backgrounds, different temperaments, and different experiences, so conflict is inevitable. Discomfort will happen from time to time. The best way to cope is to keep your distance, rely on yourself, and live wisely so that you don't end up hurting each other. As we come to the end of this video, I want to take a moment to reflect on what we've discussed today. We've explored the realities of living with family as you age and the importance of maintaining your independence, setting boundaries, and learning to care for yourself. We've also touched on the delicate dynamics between parents and their in-laws, and how to navigate those relationships with wisdom and kindness. So, what have you learned so far? Is there something that stood out to you or a piece of advice you plan to carry forward in your own life? I'd love to hear from you. Please comment below with one thing you've learned in this video that you will bring into your own life. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave your comment below, like the video, share it with those who might benefit, and subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss any of our upcoming content. Your support means so much to us. Thanks for watching, and remember, take care of yourself, because you deserve it.